Another day, another shooting, another round of pointless political posturing and finger pointing and scapegoating and name calling and virtue signaling about who really cares the most. Not one single solution offered on the table, of course, beyond vague talking points, but there's enough righteous indignation to fill an ocean. It's the NRA's fault. It's the GOP. It's the religious husband with 5 kids who has a bunch of guns. Or it's the fact that not enough people have guns to arm themselves, and liberals made gun-free zones, and therefore that's what's targeted by killers, and on, back and forth, just the fucking Spider-Man meme. At this point, the only thing I'm fairly certain of is that those who were supposedly elected to be in charge don't give two shits about any of this and actually want tragedy to happen so that they can yell back and forth at each other and further polarize the nation. After all, while Chuck Schumer gets up there to speak out against guns, for instance, I'm reminded that this fucking anti-American leech has been in his same political office for 41 years. 41 years! As long as I've been alive, this dude's been in Congress. And what has he done? The same as Ted Cruz, pretty much. He'll give someone a stern talking to. And how many years of those 41 have Democrats been an absolute majority in the House, Senate, and White House? And they do nothing. They do nothing, but they blame Republicans, and Republicans blame the Democrats. There's the game. There's the fucking game. We stay scared, we stay panicked, we stay angry at each other, and they stay absolutely doing nothing for the benefit of Americans except yelling back and forth and making us think that there are actually two separate fucking parties. It's all faking gay, it's all a hoax, it's all a psyop, all of it. So unfortunately, in this particular situation, we're again talking about little kids who were murdered. Innocent little cute adorable kids who never did anything to anybody. So for at least the next entire decade, as evidenced by Lanza's spree on little kids, we're going to hear all about how guns are the problem, or white people are the problem, or the NRA or GOP or gun-free zones or democratic policies, etc., etc. Everything's the problem, right? Except the fucking killer and why they would choose to target kids. But when is someone going to address the real fucking issue here, in my mind? Why kids? Why target kids? We know from the Buffalo shooter manifesto, for instance, that he was a twisted psychotic racist who had planned to target black people specifically. When someone shoots little kids, however, we never delve into their reasons. We don't talk about what would make them do that. We just say, oh, it's the gun. Oh, it's the NRA. What would make a motherfucker want to shoot an innocent little kid? Why is that? Well, the reason I think is that mainstream American society, being far left, literally hates kids. They push the message that kids are shit, that kids are pointless, kids are disposable. You'll see them virtue signal now about how no parent deserves this pain and yada yada yada, but they hate little kids. They never ever, not a single time, speak up for the kids being murdered unless it fits a corporate political narrative. Oh, that's so damn cynical. How could you possibly say that people don't care about kids? You bellow out in an estrogen-fueled rage? The evidence, bitch. The evidence. Literally 99% of the time that children are murdered in America, the mainstream media doesn't even carry the story. There aren't any political points to be won unless it's an instance like this. The most recent and one of the all-time most glaring examples, the Waukesha terrorist who mowed down a bunch of little kids and old people. The story disappeared faster than a bottle of vodka in Nancy Pelosi's liquor cabinet. Did families not mourn? Did parents of children not face the worst day of their lives? But no, it didn't fit the political narrative. This was an anti-white black supremacist who drove out of his way to intentionally murder white people, unlike the Buffalo anti-black white supremacist terrorist who went out of his way to murder black people. So, next? Well, what about this demon? She murdered a little white infant in a brutal fashion and had zero remorse about it. There are conflicting reports here, so I don't know which is true. She says something to the effect of, this little bitch won't stop crying, and some reports said that she claimed this little white bitch won't stop crying. I don't know which is true, but what is true is that this demon grabbed this beautiful little innocent baby by its ankles and started swinging her into the door jamb like a sack of potatoes. And when that didn't kill the child, this savage beast then smothered the baby while its little arms and legs flailed about. Imagine dying that way. Holy fuck, man. But yeah, it was just a white child and there was no gun involved, and that suspect was of the protected variety. So not a fucking peep about it. But people care about children's lives, right? Children dying gets everyone on edge. Well, it's about the children here. What about this scum? Walked onto the boy's front lawn and shot him execution style right in the fucking head. This one was even a gun. And a little innocent kid. So where were all the people talking about it? If these people care so much about the children, where was the outrage? Not a single fucking story about this beyond the locals. Not a single indignant speech on the floor of Congress. Not a single CNN panel put together to talk about why is this happening and what can be done to change it. Or even about guns. They just ignored this. This kid's life didn't matter because the perpetrator was a protected class. There weren't any political points to be gained here. So miss me with this, it's all about the kids and we need to keep our kids safe bullshit. It's about what's politically expedient and prudent and beneficial for all of these LARPers addicted to the dopamine boost they get from taking the correct side of a mainstream issue. And that sort of plays directly into why these maniacs target children. If a culture of guns, ranging from America's founding and Second Amendment to gangster rap glorifying them, is what's responsible for why people want guns and want to shoot guns, then it's the culture of hating children that causes maniacs to target little kids. And yes, this culture fucking hates children. It despises children. It views children as some encumbrance that should not exist, as kids get in the way of an adult's hedonism. Let's have a look at some of the many ways by which our mainstream culture makes it known that children are to be hated. You are to hate children. Here are just 5. There are fucking plenty more, but here are just 5 examples of many, because I don't want this to go on for hours. The number 1 is abortion. We live in a society where the mainstream consensus is that an adult female's freedom from encumbrance is more important than the life of a child. Simple as that. No matter how much you may want to couch and qualify that in the shroud of reproductive rights or bodily autonomy, the fact is that we believe as a society that should it please women, a child is naught but a clump of cells and can be sacrificed. This isn't about being pro or anti-abortion, pro anti-choice. This is about the realization that as a society, we have decided that the right to live for a child is not nearly as important as a woman's right to do whatever the fuck she pleases. And this is even pushing toward infanticide in some states. These messages permeate the social sphere. They're not contained. This isn't a little message in a vacuum somewhere. This shit reaches and expands. Children's lives aren't important is the message that's being sent. If you say this to people enough, some start to believe it. There are literally millions of women getting abortion every year, roughly a million alone in the United States a year. And some of these actually brag about it and laugh about it and wear t-shirts saying, I've had 21 abortions. They're proud of it. They find it empowering. So don't tell me that society cares about children. It doesn't. Abortion sends a clear message to society. Children's lives don't matter. The second example of how much America's society hates children is that it grooms them. Outside of Florida and very few other places, children in public schools are viewed as literal tools of experimentation and affirmation for mentally ill adults. This is literally the truth and everyone knows it. This isn't the least bit hyperbolic. In my state of Virginia, in Loudoun and Fairfax, which is Western DC and not real Virginia, but anyway, the trans agenda is so incredibly important for the adults that they let children be raped in school because stopping that, punishing that, or drawing attention to that in any way might end up stigmatizing the adults who identify as transgender. Go through that again in your brain. It wasn't for the benefit of children, but rather to their detriment. Children being raped in school was overlooked because it might hurt the image of adult trans people. You even had former President Obama coming out there without any information, just claiming it was a hoax because he wanted to help push that agenda, the child-hating agenda. For years in America, we told ourselves that we'd never become the UK, where we allowed our children to be groomed into psychotic, pedophilic rape cults. And also, we wouldn't be called racist by people. We said that for years. It couldn't be us. It couldn't be us. And we fucking did it. Our society cares so damn little about our own children that we allow them to be groomed and molested and fucked up by adults so that we won't have to be called transphobic. So tell me again how much we care about children in America. We really care about these children's lives in America that we'll send them to these public schools to be groomed and just fucking ignore it and then call Florida Hitler 2.0 when they try to stop it. Bad man DeSantis. Even when these behaviors are exposed and brought into the light of day by accounts like Libs of TikTok, and we see thousands upon thousands of examples of our little children being groomed and fucked up for life, we as a society, mainstream generally speaking, consider the feelings of the adults involved rather than the safety of our own children. You don't think psychopaths out there view this as our children being meaningless? Our children being playthings for the adults? Hey, y'all can abort them or use them for some sort of weird sexual validation and affirmation, so why should anyone view kids as anything but disposable? Third on the list is that our kids are used as political props. On both sides of the aisle here for sure, but especially on the left. You never find any sort of leftist post about how they're proud of their children or how they love their children for just being their children. You never see that. Instead, you see posts about how my 5-year-old daughter came down the steps today and said, "Mommy, why do the mean, hypocritical, religious white men want to tell you that you're not allowed to have an abortion?" OMG, cry face emoji, I've never been more proud of my daughter. And then you have parents whose only relationship with their children is seemingly to dress them up in political regalia and send them out into the streets to protest. Political props. Where's the quality time vacations, bedtime stories, pictures of how happy they are, pictures of your child's report cards? It's like the parents who decided not to abort made that decision solely because they figured they could use their child for their own benefit later in life. There's no fucking way you could view as a blank slate, just come here and see our anti-child propaganda and not come away feeling that if children in America were hated and just political puppets and vessels for political messaging. All these are just little humans being used for their adorable faces, but nobody really cares about them, is the message you'd come away with. It doesn't read in any way as love, and it certainly doesn't come across as if children need to be protected. We treat them in American mainstream society as if they're unimportant. Disposable whiteboards on which messages can be written and delivered. Why care about children's lives when this is how children are used by our society? The fourth reason is very, very sinister, evil, demonic. It's the push to tell women to not even bother to have children because kids are useless, mouth-breathing eaters who are going to harm the planet. So imagine you're a psychotic climate activist whose entire personality has been molded by the mainstream media telling you that we're all going to die in 10 years. Then you go to look for the culprits, the people responsible for negatively affecting the climate, and you find an entire library's worth of anti-child propaganda from the left wing claiming that it's actually children killing the planet. And sure, of course, a lot of this is tied up in the great replacement theory whereby they only tell white women not to have children and then turn right back around and tell white women that they must be accepting of third world immigrant children since the white women are no longer having children. What a fucking game that is. But you can't expect the hateful psychopath to delve into the nuance of the anti-children messaging. All they potentially see is the bombardment of messages saying that children are bad, evil creatures because they're killing the planet. We are not a society that cares about the lives of our children. And the left especially is not a side that weeps for their suffering and death. These evil motherfuckers hate kids. They themselves act like kids as far as maturity levels go, and it would appear as if they get jealous at the idea of people having kids because that could mean society cares more about the little new brother or sister than it cares about them. Crazed fucking jealousy displayed by these mental midget degenerates outright telling you that kids are killing the planet, but then crying that they love kids so much when it's politically expedient. Number 5 and last on this particular list is that children aren't actually viewed as being wards of or in the care of their parents, but actually property of the state. You've all seen the tweets and the articles and the live stream interviews with politicians, etc. The radical left claims that it's not fair that parents get to indoctrinate, quote unquote, their children to their own customs and traditions and religious beliefs because it should be the state that gets to do that. If you notice, each successive topic on this list all ties back to the previous and all tie in together. As property of the state, the message is that of course it's okay for kids to be groomed. Of course it's okay for us to scapegoat them as the problem with our climate. Of course it's okay to murder them in the womb. Children as state property removes any semblance of humanity from them. They're not cute little kids just trying to learn. They're not little people playing and laughing and having fun. They're not the future. They're viewed as little disposable wards of the state. And we could go on here forever about how little American society, especially America's government, actually cares about little kids. The government burned alive dozens of little kids at Waco, and we'll never even mention that in society. That's because we care so much about the murder of innocent little kids. Obama made it a fucking habit to drop bombs on children, and not one time did these Save the Children cry hard say one negative thing about it. Not fucking once. We ignored it. That's how much kids matter to us. Kids' lives matter. Make the fucking t-shirt. Biden orders a fucking drone dropped on innocent women and children, and it's crickets. The official statement was, oh, our bad. It was just a mistake, and life went on. What I'm saying here is these people need to stop pretending that they care about fucking kids because they don't care about kids. The message is the literal exact opposite of that. It's pushed that our society hates kids. So how could anyone ever be sick and demented enough to shoot little kids? Hell, I don't know. How could anyone ever be fucking sick enough to abort them or molest them or groom them or use them as political props or say they shouldn't even exist because they're harming the planet and getting in the way of an adult's happiness? We're told by mainstream news that Tucker Carlson talking about the Great Replacement Theory means he has blood on his hands when a maniac racist murders black people in cold blood. So how clean are the hands of our mainstream society when it spends its time dehumanizing children and using them as props and playthings of adults? There is a specific reason that these demons decide to target little children. Is it because of anything I've talked about here? I don't know. I could be wrong. But the fact that nobody in this fucking society wants to psychologically unpack it and to learn why is, to me, pretty strong evidence that our society actually does fucking hate children. And people pick up on that. Bye.